Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am Sean. Here's another week in review. And man, I thought I really wouldn't have much of anything to say about this week, but I actually do. So, beginning with reading, I did not think I read anything this week, but I guess I actually have. So, I read a few pages of Milan Kundera, The Book of Laughter and Forgetting, and basically, I am starting to think pretty much no matter what, I'll probably give this book at least a 4 or a 5-star rating because it's just pretty beautifully written and pretty brilliant. I guess it's a little bit of a collection of short stories because the first one is, oh, I don't even know what, 24 pages maybe. And it seems like it's just a, self-contained story. So I think it's just short stories. And it was just really good. And yeah, so pretty impressed with it. And it's kind of a book where even if it's not something that will be like my favorite book or whatever of all time or my favorite writing of all time or anything like that, I still recognize the goodness in it. I recognize the skill in it. I recognize the brilliance of it. So no matter kind of my eventual feelings about the book in the end, I'll still probably think this is pretty much, I don't necessarily want to say a masterpiece, but I could see the writer is pretty brilliant. And yeah, so it's pretty much heading toward a 4 or a 5-star rating. Next, I also read a few pages of Robert A. Heinlein, Starship Troopers. Basically, I read a scene where it's kind of his first week or whatever in the boot camp or whatever because he joined the military, and it's borrowing some things from the film, like how the drill instructor has fights with the recruits where he challenges them, like, if any of you think you can beat me, come on, let's go. And he breaks their arm and stuff, and that's pretty much exactly what happens in the book. So yeah, following, or I guess I should say the movie follows a lot of it, and I like that. I just like seeing how books compare with the movie adaptations. Next, I also read a few more pages or a little chapter or whatever of A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. Just the same thing as last week. I think it's pretty good. And that's surprising to me because I don't usually like a bunch of current fiction, but I think this is a pretty charming story, kind of. I don't really know where it's going to go, like what the main plot of the book will be so much. I mean, I get that it's kind of about this aristocrat who the Soviet Union is kind of taking all of his stuff. So it's just him dealing with all of that so far. And so I'm just guessing the book is more of that. But I'm liking it pretty well. And so far, I'll probably at least, like as a bare minimum, give the book 2 stars, but probably closer to 3, just because even if I do wind up hating whatever follows, I'll at least be able to say the first 30 pages or whatever. Wow, exactly 30 pages. The first 30 pages at least have me thinking, this is a pretty good story so far. So I should say it's actually probably heading toward at least a 3-star rating. So liking it pretty well so far. Next, I kind of have 2 parts to say about this, and it's about my writings. I just imagine like everyone who does happen to watch this, even though there's probably not very many, these videos don't get very many views. As soon as I mention my writing, everyone's just like, okay, I'm off. But oh well, I'm still going to talk about it. If people don't want to hear about it, they can just not watch. So I thought I did not have any work on Babylon Dithers this week in terms of writing, but I actually did. So I wrote 3 chapters this past week of Babylon Dithers. So the first chapter is, I don't think it's the first time you meet the satire force pinned down in the refinery. Maybe it is. I'm not quite sure about that, but it's basically, I wrote a scene in the refinery with the SAT team. Then I also wrote a chapter, like a follow-up chapter, where Trevor is meeting with the Iranian general, asking if they could send help to Mosul. And then I wrote a chapter where Trevor talks with his father, and his father kind of tells him that he has made the decision to run for president in 2016. So, I mean, it's kind of like official now that Trevor's father is going to run for the presidency, which I think is just kind of cool to kind of officially reveal that in the series. And something that I've said in these previous weekly videos is I've been struggling kind of with Babylon Dithers, with thinking, oh, what I'm writing is not very good. So I've been procrastinating a lot, having a lot of self-doubt. But that first chapter I wrote with the SAT team in the refinery, that chapter is the first chapter where I felt like the muse was with me. I've talked about this in a few previous videos, how I kind of believe in something that I call the muse, where the muse is kind of a divine presence, sort of, that hangs over the author's shoulder, whispering in their ear what to write. So to me, it's not just me writing, it's the muse speaking through me. That is when I really like get in a groove and start writing stuff that I think is like, that's inspired, you know? That is the muse taking over. Otherwise, when it's just me, when the muse is not with me, I'm just kind of trying to force it a little bit. I'm just trying to write it on my own. I may not feel so much in love with the book. I may not feel that what I'm writing is very brilliant, but when I write those streaks of brilliance, I don't credit it to myself. I don't think like, ooh, I did a real good job there. I think like the muse is with me. The muse is speaking in my ear. The muse took over for that chapter or whatever. So I have not really so much felt that at all with this book yet. But that chapter with the SAT force pinned down in the refinery, that is the first time in writing this book so far where I really felt the muse is with me. Like, that was a chef's kiss, good chapter. And part of what I'd kind of say about it is, for those moments, it's not things that I would usually, well, it may kind of sound weird, but it's not things that I would think about myself. It's not things that I plan to write. Like when I sit down to write that day, I wasn't thinking this is what I would write. I just begin writing, and then next thing I know, I've written this chapter, and it's just really good stuff that I did not plan. So for that, that's why I say it's the muse speaking through me. It's not me coming up with it, because I had no idea I would write this. It's just the muse takes over. And so yeah, that's just kind of something I believe in. I know it probably sounds really weird, but yeah, so that felt really encouraging to me, that the muse finally actually took over for Babylon Dithers. Now, I thought because of that, I would begin to roll off some really good chapters of Babylon Dithers, just because it's like, ooh, the muse is with me, so now I could be really productive writing. But instead, what I've been doing like the last 4 days or so, while I was driving into town a few days ago, like 4 days ago or whatever, I had kind of an epiphany. I was just driving in town, going to the gym, and I was listening to one of my booktube videos, like where I was talking about my outlining of Act 2 of Babylon Dithers. That's like a 3-hour video or something like that. I know no one's probably going to watch that except for myself. So I was playing that in the car while I was driving to the to the gym, and listening to Act 2 of Babylon Dithers, the outlining of it. And I just kind of thought, kind of out of the blue, what if I actually moved what I plotted out, what I outlined for Act 3 of Babylon Dithers? And what if I actually made that the first act of Atlantis Dislodged? So, Babylon Dithers is the 6th book in the Trevor Knight series. It's set in Iraq. Atlantis Dislodged is the 7th book in the Trevor Knight series, and it's set in Israel largely. And what happens in the first act of that book is Trevor is up in Syria fighting ISIS. That was like always the plan as far back as when I wrote Ottoman Destiny, the fourth book in the Trevor Knight series. I kind of thought in that book that, I knew I was building this series now to Atlantis Dislodged. Everything is building toward Atlantis Dislodged, where everything culminates in this massive invasion of Israel. And so when I was writing Ottoman Destiny, book number 4, I decided, okay, I think Atlantis Dislodged is going to begin with Trevor Knight in Syria. So when I began writing Babylon Dithers, I wrote a part of the book, Act 3, where Trevor actually goes to Syria, and he does several things there. There's a storyline where he goes to Camp Kate, and there's this Syrian rebel group backed by Turkey who attacks Camp Kate. And from there, Trevor goes down to Palmyra, where a couple historians are taking like 3D images of historical monuments, because Islamic State is destroying historical monuments across the region. So they're photographing monuments in the area to preserve them in case ISIS blows them up, which really happened. And so Trevor gets involved in that in Palmyra. And then he goes to a place called Tabuk, which is near Raqqa. There's a dam there. Raqqa is the Islamic State capital at the time. And in real life, what happened is there's this dam there, and the Kurds were fighting over it with Islamic State. And Islamic State was worried if that dam blew up, Raqqa would be obliterated because it's right on the other side of that dam. So they came to a ceasefire in real life. And so I was going to have Trevor take part in that. And after that, Trevor would return to Iraq. So that was going to be Act 3 of Babylon Dithers, kind of in a way laying the groundwork for at the end of Babylon Dithers, Trevor goes back to Syria, and that's where he is at the start of Atlantis Dislodged. But I didn't really like the idea that 1/4 of Babylon Dithers, the book set in Iraq, takes place in Syria. 1/4 of it takes place in Syria because of Act 3. I didn't really like that too much, even though I kind of justified it to myself. I still didn't really like too much that, well, 1/4 of the book takes place in Syria, not Iraq. So I was okay with that for a while, but just while I was driving to the gym, I thought, hey, what if Act 3 of Babylon Dithers is actually Act 1 of Atlantis Dislodged? And this has kind of been a problem as well. I have been thinking that Trevor Knight might not really even appear in Atlantis Dislodged until the end of Act 1. And again, I've kind of been justifying that to myself, just saying that most of Act 1 of Babylon Dithers will be the search for Trevor. You won't see him. It'll just be like, where's Trevor in all this? And then at the end of Act 1, you'd meet him. Kate would go up to Syria and would find Trevor. And it's kind of like in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, where you finally see Luke at the end of The Force Awakens. And it's just like, oh my God, there he is. And then it's over. It would kind of be like that, where Kate goes up to Syria and she finds Trevor and it's like, oh my God, there he is. And then that's the end of Act 1. But I didn't really like that because it's supposed to be the Trevor Knight series and he doesn't even take part in it until the end of Act 1. So then I just kind of realized, like I said, I was kind of justifying that originally, just thinking, well, it's going to be fine. You're going to meet him eventually. And I kind of like that readers may be like, oh, where's Trevor? And then you finally see him and it'd be like, oh my gosh, there he is. But just driving into town, going to the gym, I thought, what if what I planned for Act 3 of Babylon Dithers with Camp Kate, Palmyra, and Tabqa, what if that is what Trevor is doing in Act 1 of Atlantis Dislodged? So while all this stuff is going on in Israel in Act 1, meanwhile, I can cut to Syria and show what Trevor is doing up at Camp Kate, at the Tabqa Dam, and at Palmyra, so you'll see what Trevor is doing all along in Act 1. So that right away made me think that would actually work. And then I quickly decided that if I got rid of Act 3 of Babylon Dithers, the whole Syria section, what do I do for, to fill that? And instead of coming up with a whole new act, what I decided is Act 2 of Babylon Dithers kind of has two storylines. There's one storyline about the Mosul Dam, the battle for the Mosul Dam, a real life event. And then there's also another storyline about the Sinjar massacre, where ISIS attacks the Yazidis in this city or town of Sinjar in northern Iraq. There's like these mountains there, the Sinjar Mountains, and ISIS commits a genocide there against the Yazidis. And so what I decided is that since Act 3 of Babylon Dithers, the stuff in Syria, will now be part of Act 1 of Atlantis Dislodged, what I'll do is I'll break up Act 2. So the stuff from the Mosul Dam will still be Act 2 of Babylon Dithers, but then all the stuff about the Sinjar massacre and all that, that will move up to Act 3, and that will be the focus of Act 3, will be the Sinjar massacre. So what I've been doing these last 4 days or so is I've been re-outlining the book, and I'm sorry, Nibbler is playing with something if you hear something in the background. So I don't know what I just said. So what I've been doing the last 4 days or so is I've been working on re-outlining Babylon Dithers. So the first thing I did is I took all the stuff from Act 3 and I just copied it to like an act or an outline for Atlantis Dislodged. So Act 3 is now part of the outline of Act 1 of Atlantis Dislodged. So the outline of Act 3 of Babylon Dithers is gone. Then I began breaking up the Mosul Dam chapters and the Yazidi chapters, the Sinjar chapters. And so what I've been doing is I've been filming another video where I do the outline of my book of Babylon Dithers. So just talking about like remaking the outline for Act 2, the Mosul Dam stuff, and then remaking the outline for Act 3, which will now be the Sinjar massacre. And then what I also did is I decided to do a re-outline of Act 4, which is the Kurds have a referendum to go independent in Iraq. So Iraqi Kurds vote for independence, which really happened in 2017, even though I'm having it occur in 2013. So yeah, that's what I've been doing these last few days, filming videos of re-outlining the book, Babylon Dithers. Act 2 is now the Mosul Dam. Act 3 is now the Sinjar Massacre, and also changing the outline for Act 4 because I just didn't like it at all. I didn't think it made much sense. There were storylines that didn't go anywhere. It was just a mess. Actually, I filmed about 8 hours of footage of re-outlining Babylon Dithers for Act 2, Act 3, and Act 4. 8 hours of footage that I have re-outlining the book. So what I'm actually doing is I'm working on editing all of that into a video for BookTube. So it's probably going to be close to or even more than a 5-hour video. Again, I know no one on earth is going to want to watch 5 hours of me outlining Babylon Dithers, but that's just what I've been doing for the last 4 days or so. And I know it'd be a ton of work to edit that. I'm already like 2.5 hours into the editing with like 5.5 hours left to go or whatever, which is going to be, another week of work probably. And it kind of sucks because it's like I could be writing Babylon Dithers, but instead I'm going to be outlining this 8-hour long video. Why? Especially when I know no one's going to watch it. But I don't know, I just am kind of doing it because maybe someday someone would like to be interested in that outline or whatever, just to see how I came up with the book. And the way I kind of explain it is my favorite author growing up was Clive Cussler. And if I could see on YouTube like a video of Clive Cussler doing the outlining for Atlantis Found, the first book I read by him, that would be so cool to me, just to see Clive Cussler like brainstorming Atlantis Found, coming up with an outline, writing the first chapters, editing the book, whatever. That would be so interesting to me, just to see his process, just to see how he thinks, how he comes up with it, how he does it, what he does first, to see how the outline differs from the actual book, and just to see the book coming together. That would be so cool for me to see that. So I'm kind of doing it with the same sort of reasoning, that if ever there was anyone who was interested in any of my books, maybe they would want to see this kind of stuff, like to see how I actually make the book. I know, people may never be interested in my books, let alone watching a 6-hour video of me outlining one of my books. They may just be interested in like a 2-minute video, like showing that, but they don't want to see a 6-hour video. But still, I just kind of figure, what the hell, I'm going to do it anyway. If it doesn't get any views, oh well, at least I could watch it. And when I'm ever taking like a long drive or anything, I could just play that video 5-6 hours or whatever, and I don't have to worry about the video ending. It's going to play for the entire time. So I just like that. So I know no one will probably watch it except myself, but still, I find it useful, and it helped me recording the video because it helps me to talk about my books, because that way I can actually come up with ideas a lot better than if I just sit there quietly by myself with the like cursor just blinking at me. I'll just never think of anything a lot of times. But if I'm actually able to talk about my book with someone, it just motivates me. It helps give me ideas. I get ideas of how to do things. If I'm running into a jam, I'll be able to kind of reason why this isn't working and maybe what I could do instead to make it work instead. I just think a lot better when I have someone to talk to. So that really helps me to just talk my ideas out. And I can't just really talk to myself. I kind of have to talk as if I'm talking to someone. And I've said this before, the reason I think this works for me is because if I cannot explain it to another person, I'll know I won't be able to explain it to readers. If I can't make another person understand it, I won't be able to make readers understand it. So it's not the right idea. So that's kind of how I work, is if I'm trying to talk about my books and I just know, no, that doesn't make sense, then I'll know I'm on the wrong track. I need to get on the right track. And so it helps me. So even if no one else likes that video, if no one else is interested in the video, it still helped me. It helped me figure out the plot. So yeah, I think I'll still work on editing that video. I probably won't be ready for a week, maybe 2 weeks, I don't know. Massive video to edit. But yeah, so that's what I've been doing the last 4 or 5 days or so. So I'm already 2.5 hours into the video. So by that pace, that took me like 4 days. So, it may take me a couple weeks to do that whole video. But yeah, so anyway, I think that's pretty much it for the main stuff. Oh, usually I talk about personal life stuff and any kind of recent deaths and stuff. So I guess I hexed him. So just a few days ago, Chuck Norris died. That really sucks. For the last few months, I've been watching a lot of, well, I guess it's called The Way of the Dragon, but when I was growing up, it used to be called Return of the Dragon. That's the film where Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris have the fight in the Coliseum. Just a great movie. I love that movie. And I've actually, I am really interested in like keeping track of recent deaths and stuff. So one thing I do is like I've paid attention to like which characters from that movie, Way of the Dragon and stuff, are still alive. So, you know, Chuck Norris was still alive. The main woman from the film, she was or is still alive. A couple of the other guys, I forget who, but it's like whoever, it's like Jimmy or whatever, you know, just the other like martial artists in the restaurant or whatever. Several of them are still alive. Or I forget exactly which ones it is, but like at least a couple of them are still alive. And yeah, so it's just interesting to me to see like, wow, these people are still alive. But of course, pretty much the biggest remaining one, Chuck Norris, you know, now, you know, that's just kind of upsetting, you know, just a legend. So he's definitely one of the more famous ones. Because something I always think of is just to think of people who are actually still alive, like Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones. Oh, well, now I'll probably jinx it all. You know, Mel Brooks, he's still alive. Just so many people, you know, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr, the author of The Indian in the Cupboard. I think her name is it Lynn Reed Banks? Who's Lynn Reed Banks? Is that who it is? I think it is. She's still alive. Actually, two of the characters from one of my favorite movies of all time, Jason and the Argonauts, like the main woman from that film who plays Medea or whatever, she is still alive. The like son of the king that Jason is trying to kill, I forget what his name is, kind of the villain in that movie, Jason and the Argonauts, he is still alive, I think. I kind of keep track of recent deaths to see, like, you know, if these people have died yet. I was talking previously about how Tippi Hedren, the main protagonist from The Birds, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, she is still alive. Like the sister from Psycho is still alive. The main actresses from North by Northwest and Vertigo are still alive. Dick Cavett from the Dick Cavett Show still alive. So just on and on. There's a lot of people where I kind of keep track of thinking like, wow, that person is still alive. And so that's why I kind of keep watching like recent deaths, just kind of a little bit afraid to see like who's going to be on the list now, you know? And something that I always kind of think is just like, damn, you know, like I never got an opportunity to meet Chuck Norris. Like I never got to see him in person or anything, you know. I never got to have any kind of personal interaction with him. I never interacted with him on Twitter or whatever. So it's just kind of a sucky thing just to think like these real famous people who were alive in your lifetime. And it's just like, damn, I never got to meet him. You know, it's just sucks. You know, I mean, just anything like Willie Mays, the baseball player, just to think that at least for a while, there was a period where I could have met Willie Mays. That's just so crazy to think like, damn, that would have been cool. Or anything like Bill Russell, the basketball player. Other people are still alive, like Bob Pettit and Bob Cousy. Great basketball players like from before the time of Bill Russell. Oscar Robertson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan is still around. You know, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. So many people, it's just, I'm just dreading them falling off, you know. Bob Dylan. Oh, another one, kind of a personal favorite of mine, like Al Stewart, the musician. So yeah, just saying all those names, it's all you guys are probably like, don't say the name, you're gonna jinx it. And if they die, like, it's my fault. Sorry. But anyway, so yeah, anyway, that's just kind of a blow, Chuck Norris dying. Anyway, other than that, I haven't really been doing too much this week. I've been playing a little bit of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I haven't played any other games. But yeah, mostly I've just been writing Babylon Dithers, those 3 chapters, reading a couple chapters of those books, re-outlining the book and editing the video. that's pretty much mostly what I've been doing. Also, one thing is I found a like channel on YouTube that has like full seasons of MXC, Most Extreme Challenge. That's a show I used to love to watch. And so on YouTube in the past, they've only had like certain episodes and certain clips from MXC, but I just kind of checked randomly a few days ago to see, I wanted to watch some, and there's like full seasons available, like 4-hour videos of MXC, season 1, season 2, whatever. I'm not sure if you eventually have to pay to view those, but so far, like the first one, like 5 hours or whatever, it's all free. So that's really cool. I love that. That's one of my favorite shows, MXC. And in one of my books, Syrian Dander, I think, there's a scene where I have a Turkish Air Force pilot, and I gave him the name of Burak Baba Ganoush. And that's because that's like a reference to MXC, because like the commentators in that show, a lot of times they will tell, like, they'll give names of people and they'll give them the name of Baba Ganoush. So whatever, they'll be like, Sarah Baba Ganoush or whatever. So that's something I wanted to come up with. So his name in the book is Burak Baba Ganoush. So that's a reference to MXC. So just something really amusing, I think. So I've been watching that a lot as well. Otherwise, I think that's about it. I don't have much else to say. Again, I know any time I talk about my writing, people are probably like, nope, not interested, goodbye. Maybe that's why these weekly updates get such few views. But oh well, I don't really care. But yeah, so I think it's been a good week for me doing those couple readings, writing a few chapters that I really liked, re-outlining the book. I'm really happy with the changes to the outline I made. And yeah, so I think it's been a pretty good week for me. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. If you have, hope to see you in another video. Bye.
2, 3, 4.